up, dog?
Hey, is this Patrick?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. I was like, man, let's do Skype, but I didn't know if we had done Skype before with you or what.
No, we haven't. We were talking about your Deadlight Sessions, and we figured, hey, let's just get you on the show and have the guy who created the record with the other three guys in the band talk about it himself. I think that's easier.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Cool.
What do you
think?
think?
Yeah, if you can hear me good, let me make sure. I moved to Van Nuys, and my cell service sucks over here now.
What do you think, Matt? You like his phone service?
Yeah, his phone works fine, man.
Yeah, what's up with his phone?
So now that
who's your provider?
Now that everybody knows he lives in Van Nuys is going to have a sudden influx of Heaven Below fans just flocking to Van Nuys, man. All right, Patrick, so you got this Deadlight Sessions EP. Actually, I'm not even going to call it an EP. I'm just going to call it an album because, if you want to go all the way back to the 70s, early 80s, a lot of those albums were 30, 35 minutes long, and your album comes in just over 30 minutes. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the brand new album release from Heaven Below. So I got to ask you, man. I mean, to me, it's kind of like a peaks and valley type of thing. Peaks and just what's going on instrumentally. I mean, I think the band's clicking. But lyrically wise, I mean, there's a lot of shit going on in this album, man. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about what's going on with this album?
It's been kind of weird for me to talk about it a little bit because a couple of our diehard fans, the first thing they said is this an autobiographical album? And, when you say yes to those kind of questions, people start asking, well, okay, so what happened to you when you were a kid, or why are you feeling like this about that, and who died in your family that made you write a song about? And so it's made me feel real vulnerable when people ask that. But the truth is, most of the album is kind of autobiographical. The Needle Lies Again is I went ahead and told people it was about Paul from Slipknot, and I never had any intention for anyone to know, but people started asking. So, I wasn't going to make anything up, so I just started being truthful. And the truth is, the album is kind of my dark side. A lot of people go, man, Patrick, you're such a happy guy and funny and all that shit. But, just like, my legendary favorite bands like Alice in Chains, they're a bunch of clowns, so, but you get into the lyrics sometimes and the dark parts. And, yeah, I guess without sounding narcissistic, it is about me.
Well, you have to say this. I mean, as a musician and as a lyricist, and I will say this, you're probably one of the better lyricists we had an opportunity to interview and actually talk to. And, you write about what you feel and what you've experienced. And when I say peaks and valleys, like I said, the peaks from a musical side, instrumental side, there's so much going on in this album. I think from the acoustic to the drum sound to even the synthesizers and stuff that you guys are using on there. The acoustic guitars, I mean, it's all blended together, and then you just have the lyrics. I mean, and it's easy to sit there and have the music and then put the lyrics together, but when the lyrics actually mean something and say something, emotionally it's all tied together, and for me it works. So I think whatever you were trying to do when you went into the studio, I mean, it works. Or I guess I'll ask this. Going into the studio, did you guys know what you wanted to do, or is this just what came out?
No, it was a little bit experimental, and without minimizing the songs, a few of the songs were almost thrown away. Tomorrow Never Comes had so many rearrangements back and forth from me and Jesse to even get it to where it is now. It was a throwaway song, and I just went back to it one day and said, I know I'm feeling some good vibes here. Let me have one more shot at getting this song right. And we finally got it, and it was important to us to experiment, because a lot of people say we're going to experiment, and that's usually their worst album. But I told the guys, I go, let's do an album on analog tape in a studio, and let's not do a lot of overdubs, but let's do our jar of flies, but let's kind of put our own twist on it. So we went ahead and used the drum machine on two of the songs. We were going to make live drums, and we said, you know what, that old drum machine loop sounds great, just leave it. And let's not put a bunch of Pro Tools plugins and a bunch of fancy crap. Let's kind of do it as if it's limited on purpose.
Well, you said Tomorrow Never Dies. I'm going to say this. That's probably one of my favorite tracks on the album, along with Damaged. And for you to sit there and say it was almost like a throwaway track, but you went back and said, no, I think there's something there. Let's work on this. I mean, for me, it works for me. I mean, I guess sometimes when you're writing music, you think you got a song, you think this is going to be the great song, it's going to put us over the top, that everybody's going to like, but it's that one song that you think's a throwaway song that nobody really wants to hear or
yeah,
you don't think's working.
It goes to show, I mean, an idea has to be good, but it's how you do it. And, Tomorrow Never Comes, I heard some of the old demos, and I laughed because I said, man, it was so apparent to me after getting away from the song what it needed to do. But once we got into the first 6 arrangements, I lost track. It's like imagine shooting a movie forever. You don't even know what you're doing. You're seeing by the end of it. So I just stepped away from it, came back, and I told the guys, I said, I think I know what we need to do here. So let's make this work. And sure enough, it finally worked.
It's got some cool lyrics on it. I mean, one of my favorite lyric on the song is when you say, "I burned out the day." And of course it's got a lot of acoustic arrangements, and like you guys just mentioned, I mean, it was on the floor for so many months, and then you guys came back to it, and it's a great song, and it's also one of my favorites on the record too. So why don't we talk about a couple other songs on the record? Matt, you mentioned "Damaged." Tell us a little bit about that song.
Yeah, let me see. That song was one of the darker subjects, and when I was a kid, this sounds so funny, but I was an altar boy for like one fucking weekend, and it didn't work out at all. I was already discovering bands like Motley Crue and Metallica. So as a little kid, I had my hair was starting to grow long, and I was in a Catholic school, and I was like the outcast. And looking back, I'm not saying that all priests are deviant, but you hear all these stories about priests and stuff, and I was like, man, did I dodge a bullet as a kid, or did they tell me I wasn't altar boy material because I have 2 huge older brothers and a big dad? I don't know, and just it got me thinking, like, wow, what if? How wrong is it that a priest would even consider touching a boy? And I went ahead and wrote about it, and the song is about a priest that's going to die, and he wants forgiveness from those that he molested. And I thought, man, you're not supposed to go here with song lyrics, but I don't give a shit. I'm just going to do it, and people get it, cool. If not, at least I got to touch on something that scares the fuck out of me anyway.
Well, since you guys put out this album, you got the brand new drummer on there, Shad, and there's some interesting drums, and there's some also interesting percussion, some sounds on that particular track. Was that something he brought in there, or was that something that you guys decided you guys wanted to do on that particular track?
Man, you have a good ear, because what happened on that track is I like a lot of Hello songs, I'll start the demo with just some program drums. And the program drums actually sounded kind of cool, but they lack that life and that breathing quality that a drummer does. And I told Shad, I go, a couple of these songs, just bring over a djembe and some weird native instrument, some of those things I've seen in your house where you like have, he has all these weird drums. So he shows up to the studio with his truck loaded with all these weird instruments I didn't even see, I didn't know he had. And he brought them in on Bleed the Sky and Damaged on a bunch of tracks. And man, we just put microphones on it and just started having him hit these drums at random parts and kind of layered a few things. And it just turned into this tribal kind of evil percussion thing. I didn't even know he could do that when he joined the band. So it's definitely a show-off point for Shad, and just to show you how much depth he has. He's not just a shred drummer.
I mean, because that was one of the things I noticed too when I first had a chance to listen to the album. I heard some of those unique sounds that, if you're a fan of Heaven Below, you probably haven't heard those sounds before. And that was one of the first things I heard, because acoustically, I know you guys could play acoustic guitar. I know you guys shred on the guitar and all that. But there was just some really unique sounds brought to this album, and that was the first thing that I noticed about this album. So, if you get a chance to talk to Shad, tell Shad, you know what? Kick ass, man. I'm glad he's in the band. I'm glad he's bringing that to the forefront.
Yeah, man, I had no idea that he had that much depth as a drummer. I knew he could shred. I knew he could play solid like AC/DC, but, we purposely did some things on this album so that when people are wearing their headphones and listening to their iPods, we purposely put some really cool stereo stuff. Because, I put on Operation Mindcrime or Rage for Order, and I love hearing all that weird stereo stuff, or even as far back as Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. And I told the guys, I go, let's really get some just some peaks and valleys, kind of like you said, and get some weird space, and then not bore people, because that's the thing. When you slow it down, it's easy to get into this weird place, but we tried to keep all the emotions in there.
Okay, guys, so why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll continue our discussion with Patrick on his band's latest release, the Deadlight Sessions. And since we're talking about the song Damage, let's go ahead and play it. And we'll be back around with more from Patrick Kennison of Heaven Below. We'll be back in a second.
Love and God, innocence, things you took from me. All I know, all my life.